Hi there guys, in this video I want to show you how you build a 62ly Anaconda. Now I did create a video a little bit ago showing how you build a 55ly Anaconda. However, after posting that video there was quite a bit of interest and a few things you could change and such. So I wanted to do an update video on this ship, especially after the 2.3 update, which allows you to modify your sensors. So that helps get a little bit more weight off the ship. So if we have a look at the jump range, you can see I've got it to 62.5 with a very maximum of 65.55. Now that would be achievable if you were to put a smaller fuel tank on. However, that is not desirable because if you run out of fuel, obviously you're kind of screwed. So for the time being, like I said, 62.5 light years is what I've got. So let's have a look at the ounce fixation and show you what I've done. So for hard points I haven't put any. These just would add extra mass and power usage. So like I said, if you're going exploring with this kind of ship, then you won't need these kind of hard points anyway. I can't see you need them exploring, or shouldn't do. So for the time being, just take them off. Next on to utility mounts, I haven't got anything fitted for the time being. I would probably put something like a heatsink here because that would just help in case you get stuck between certain stars and that. For the time being, like I said, I've just removed it to get the maximum. On our core internals, I have done quite a few modifications here. We first start with a lightweight alloys, which, like I said, I've had modified to give them a little bit more extra boost. However, this doesn't add any extra mass, unlike any of the other things, and like I said, hopefully you shouldn't be relying on the bulkheads anyway. For the reactor, I've gone for a 4A. You could probably get with a 3A and modify it for the extra power. So you could potentially get a little bit more range. However, a 4A is only 5 tons, so you're not going to save that much. Next onto thrusters, I've put a 5D. I have modified this with the dirty drive tuning, which makes it slightly lighter in its mass but increases its power draw and makes the ship a little bit quicker to turn. Like I said, it's not ideal, but it just makes it a little bit easier to steer, because that is kind of one of the big downsides to this kind of build, is that it's quite a slow turning ship. If you were to build this kind of ship with an Asp Explorer, for example, you'll find it a much faster turn speed. Anyway, so with that done, the most important modification is the frameshift drive. So obviously you want the highest you can get is at 6A. So in this modification I've gone for increased jump range, which is the one you'll need. Basically this increases the mass slightly, makes the integrity not so good, increases the power draw, but generally increases the optimized mass, and if you're lucky you can get the extra fuel per jump. Now if you look at the optimized mass, I've got 53.1%, which I think is pretty good. I think you might be able to get 55, but having the extra with the increased fuel per jump does actually help a little bit as well. So if you can get that as good as you can, that should allow you to get these big numbers. So next on to life support. So here we've gone for 5D. This is basically the lightest, and then I've used the modifications to get a bit more weight off of it. This has took it from 8 tons to 2.7 with a reduction of around about 62%, which is not a huge increase or reduction, but it just helps sometimes. This time I've gone for a 1D power distributor. After looking at various builds and things, I found that basically whatever you do, you're going to struggle to get this ship to boost. The reason is it requires quite a lot of power to the engines to get them to do that. So like I said, I've gone for a 1D in this case because it's one of the lightest. Potentially you could modify it just to give it a little bit more power to the engines or the shields, etc. But generally you won't be using that part that much, so I've just gone for the lowest. Next onto sensors, which I've again used 8D, which is the lightest again, and then just in the recent modifications in 2.3 I've used the lightweight reduction. So I've managed to get the weight down from 64 tons down to 20.2. This is a reduction around about 68%. This does have quite a good impact, and we'll probably see you get an extra couple of light years on your ship. Like I said, this was a recent modification in 2.3, so like I said, it just allows you to get a little bit more. And finally for a fuel tank we've gone for a 5C. This allows you to jump quite well. Potentially you could swap this down to something smaller, but essentially you're going to only be able to do one jump per fuel, so that's not ideal. So like I said, I would stick with a 5C in that part. Now onto our optional. Now this is where you've got a little bit of choice what you can do. In the 55 light year build, somebody said why don't I use a class 7 fuel scoop rather than a class 6. So after having a good look, I've decided to swap that around. So like I said, now you've got a little bit more fuel scooping, and I think it's a little bit cheaper. I'm not too sure on that one though. But I haven't modified it in any way because the modifications just make it more bulkier basically, and give it more integrity, which is not that useful. Next, we don't really have much in there. I've just filled it up with cargo racks for the time being. For the shield, I've just stuck a 4A. That is just to give it some sort of shielding in case. You could potentially sell that and get yourself a little bit more jump range. However, it is quite nice to have that little bit of a buffer in case, especially if you land on planets essentially. So I would advise putting a shield in as such. Finally, our last kind of two things that I want to talk about is that I've put a detailed surface scanner in. If you're going exploring, this is something you're going to be required. I have modified this to be the fast scanner. Again, this is something that's been added in 2.3. This allows the scanner to work much faster, which is something that does annoy me for how long it can take to scan a surface. So this is a welcome modification. It does add a little bit more mass to the ship. You're talking 1.3 tons to 3.6 roughly, so it's not a huge impact on the ship, but it makes the scanner much faster. Like I said, you could remove that and get possibly a little bit more range. And then finally we've got 2 more points. You're going to need an advanced discovery scanner. That allows you to just scan the whole area. And then a docking computer. This just makes life a bit easier. When you finally get back from a long range thing, you can just let the automatic pilot land you. Usually the automatic pilot is pretty okay now. At one stage he was pretty poor, and sometimes I think the first time I used it he smashed into another ship. However, I haven't noticed that's the case, and like I said, it just makes it a bit easier when you finally get somewhere. So anyway, that's kind of the build I've gone for the time being. Like I said, I might be able to modify it and get a little bit more. I think I've done quite well with the engineers mods. I think the jump range, like I said, is the most important. Getting 53.1 I think is pretty good with the increased fuel per jump. But potentially you might be able to get a little bit more. This build is obviously suited for exploration. You could potentially use it for long range training, I suppose. Obviously it's not suited for combat because you've got no weapons, but if you were to stick a load of weapons on, you might get around about 35 to 40 light years, I believe. Maybe not quite as much as 40, but would make the ship pretty good to get around the map. Obviously the only downside to this ship over something like an Anaconda, well this is an Anaconda, over an Asp Explorer or something like a Dolphin or a Diamondback, is that the thruster is quite slow in regards, so it makes this ship quite a slow turning ship. But so far I think this is about the biggest jump range you can get on the game so far without without external boost. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them below. I'm very interested to hear what you think. In the past, some of your comments have made some quite big changes. At one stage I was going to try to get to Colonia with a 25 light year ship, I believe. Like I said, after modifying, I think I got it up to about 50. So now I've got it up to 62. I think I've done quite well with that. Like I said, I haven't actually put an extra fuel tank in. It's something you could think about. Another thing you might want to put in is a vehicle hangar, and so as you land on the planets you can go and explore them. This can be added and it will take the maximum down a little bit. So I could actually show you that. So if we put the planetary hangar and install it, we can see we've got 62.66 apparently, and it takes it down to 61. So this is something you probably will be putting in Like I said, you can get slightly more out of these builds, but sometimes you want certain systems to be installed, so here you go. Anyway guys, so yeah, I'll be very interested to hear what you think. Like I said, I posted this because, like I said, there was quite a lot of interest on the 55 light year range. Hopefully this is quite a little bit more interesting because it's just that little bit more. Anyway guys, if you like the video, please like it. Subscribing also helps me a lot, so if you could do that also, that would be brilliant. I think that's about it guys. Take care and have fun out there.